Welcome to our city webinar workshop today. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend. I am Branka Manojlovic, one of 4 instructional designers over at the Center for Teaching Excellence and Innovation at Rush. We're at the Academic Center located on the 9th floor at the Metzi Center. If you ever are in the area, just pop by and introduce yourself, or if you have any questions, feel free to come by. Then you also have at the bottom corner, you have my contact information. And some housekeeping tasks just to be mindful of. Please mute your microphones and your video. And if you have a chance, type your first and last name and college in the chat box so that I can get in touch with you after the webinar for a quick brief survey. I promise it won't take more than 2 minutes to complete the survey. And then please use the chat box to ask questions or add a comment during the webinar. I will do my best to keep track of it in a timely manner. And then please wait until the end to ask questions with any audio. And then this webinar is recorded. Okay, so before we begin, I would like to get an idea of your experience using grading rubrics, whether you're an expert or a novice rubric writer. So if you can please just go ahead and use the chat box just to give us an idea. So we have, let's see, 1 novice, some experience using rubric. Anybody else want to chime in? On here. If you'd like, you can use your audio as well if you want to just make a comment about your experience using a grading rubric. Okay, so let's see. So we have 1 response. Okay, so I'm just going to keep moving on here. So where would this roadmap lead us today? To begin our journey, we need a starting point. In our journey, we will identify the purpose of the components of a rubric, identify the usefulness of using a grading rubric for faculty and students, review the steps for creating a rubric, and review best practices for creating and using rubrics. So another quick question at our first stop here. Can anyone respond to this question? You can use your audio if you choose to, or the chat box. Answer the question, what is a rubric? This will give us a starting point with the definition of a rubric. Okay, so we have more responses on the experience. So yeah, if anybody wants to open up their mic and answer the question, what is a rubric? So Tammy says that it's a recipe to help students meet the objectives for the assignment. And then Diane says that it's a standardized way of objectively grading assignments. Yes, absolutely. Those are very good responses to the question. So I'm going to actually go to my next slide. So a grading rubric is a scoring tool that identifies the various criteria relevant to an assignment or learning outcome and then explicitly states the possible levels of achievement along a continuum. So this is the best and simplest definition I could find from the DePaul Teaching Commons website. So it pretty much aligns with our responses in the chat box. Okay, so our components, or I like to also call it like a compass of a rubric, are the criteria. These should be related to your lesson objectives or course learning outcomes. The performance levels or ratings, which are general descriptors and point allocations. And then the descriptors provide the levels of performance that match each criterion. So our first roadmap checkpoint is the following example. This table, this example instructions for elements for the criteria are written in the assignment details. This is giving you an overview of where the components should be located in rubric. So as you can see, the highlighted areas are the performance levels, the criteria, and then the descriptors for the performance levels. So why use rubrics? Rubrics for peer evaluations are best graded using a holistic grading scale that uses a short narrative of characteristics to allocate scores based on the overall impression of a student's performance on a task or project. Rubrics for summative assessments, such as online discussions and project outlines. So for, let's say, online discussions, analytic or holistic rubrics can be written for discussion grading. Using either type of rubric will help you identify which students are underperforming or whether a lesson topic may need further teaching. And for project outlines, use simple checklist rubrics to check for knowledge or presence of required elements for a paper. However, the checklist rubric does not check for quality of the elements for the objectives. Then for rubrics for formative assessments, are best graded using analytic rating scales that describe explicit performance expectations for each possible rating on each listed criterion. These are most appropriate for complex learning tasks such as research papers, case study analysis, or portfolio assignments. The focus of the remainder of this workshop will be on the analytic rubrics. So how can a rubric be a useful grading tool? So rubrics are really beneficial for both students and instructors. For instructors, let's say you have more than one faculty teaching a course, which happens a lot with some of the nursing courses here. If you're using a grading rubric for an assignment, it keeps all your faculty teaching that course grading the assignment consistently. It reduces uncertainty in grading student performance and enables faculty to refer to the descriptor without needing to write long comments for feedback. And that point will save you a lot of time grading your assignments or your assessments. And then enabling faculty to identify areas of instruction that needs improvement or additional instruction. So on the student end, it provides realistic expectations of how the assessment or assignment will be graded. So there's no misunderstanding of what the assignment, how the assignment will be graded. It provides the explicit, realistic expectations of the assignment and how they'll be graded. And then it helps students identify strengths or weaknesses and direct their efforts accordingly. And then finally, it helps students target their learning for a particular assignment or assessment. So your roadmap to creating a rubric should begin by selecting an assignment. You can start off small, such as using a simple grading rubric for online discussions, or you can jump in and tackle the really big assignment, such as a research paper. Decide what you want students to demonstrate with their learning for the assignment. This should align with the learning objectives or course outcomes. And then choose the markers of quality which you feel comfortable evaluating student performance. For example, some of those markers could be exceeds expectations, meets expectations, satisfactory, does not meet expectations, or did not perform. Performance markers should demonstrate progressively more sophisticated levels of performance, with clearly identified scores. So in this next checkpoint, I have an example of a rubric that I created from an assignment for NSG 612. Kathy Cattenbrone and Liz Carlson had contacted me and asked if I could create a grading rubric for the course assignment. And I took the content the instructions and criteria from the assignment to create the rubric that you see to your right. So they had several papers in their course that they basically just had instructions and they had criteria already written in the assignment. So I moved those over to a rubric that I felt kind of goes along to what the expectations of the instructor were for this essay paper. So, and obviously you see they really wanted the thoroughness and the relevance to the topic to be more important criteria. So those were allocated a maximum of 3 points. And then organization and mechanics, those were allocated a maximum of 2 points, because at this level of performance, this should not be something that should be heavily graded on. Oops, let me see if I can. Let's see. Sorry, I skipped ahead way too fast here, but okay. So the roadmap to best practices for creating and using rubrics. So use what you have. You don't need to recreate an assignment in order to implement a grading rubric for an assessment. Use the criteria or instructions you already have for an assignment as a starting point. And there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There are many examples on the internet and teaching textbooks on rubrics. You won't necessarily find exactly the rubric that fits your assignment, but you can definitely get an idea of how to create and write your rubric. And then you can also use the same rubric for all your assignments, such as online discussion assignments. There's no need to necessarily create a rubric for each, let's say, discussion assignment, because those criteria should pretty much be the same. Same thing for, let's say there is a certain case study assignment that you're having them do as well. So you can pretty much use the same rubric for all those assignments. And then keep a file with feedback responses so that you can copy and paste feedbacks with standard responses for students as well. And these don't have to be lengthy responses, but the rubric will give you an idea of the type of responses that you can give to your students' feedback. And then ahead of time, provide the rubric to students at the beginning of the course. Place it in your syllabus or provide a page in Blackboard or any other learning management system you're using. And where in this page is where the rubric will reside, so that your students have easy access and reference it at the beginning of the course, so they identify their expectations of what they should be learning in order to complete the assessment or assignment. Be sure to also attach the rubric to the assignment so that when students are reading the assignment or assessment instructions, they can identify the markers of quality in grading. That's expected. And then a range of scores is not really recommended for the markers of quality. And I'll give you an example in the next slide. So why is a range of scores not good practice in creating rubrics? Because it may confuse students, or it may bring up disputes over grades. For instance, what is the identifying quality marker for 20 points versus, let's see, the range marker here is, let's say 18 points. A student can easily dispute that they met the criteria for 20 points, even though you scored them at 18 points. And then additionally, it creates more work for you in providing detailed feedback on why a student scored the 18-point mark rather than the 20-point mark that you see here. And then last, best practice is to make sure that the total points in the rubrics add up correctly to the total points possible for an assignment grade that you've already allocated. I quite often see when looking at rubrics that sometimes the total points don't quite add up to what the assignment points are allocated, for instance, like in Blackboard Grade Center. And then So that actually is pretty much the end of our webinar workshop here. And these are some of the resources that I used in pulling together these slides. And then a quick note of thank you for taking your time in your busy schedule to attend this webinar. And then you see my contact information. And like I said at the beginning, I am one of 4 instructional designers up here. So you can reach out to any one of us if you have any questions regarding rubrics or help in creating rubrics. So I will leave these last few minutes open to any questions that anybody has. You can open up your mic, use your mic, or you can use the chat box. So Diane, yes, you can definitely share a rubric with us if you need help with it, for sure. Yeah, you can schedule an appointment with us, or you can just send us an email. We can work either way. Oh yeah, definitely. I thought that would be helpful to share that because I've gotten quite a few requests lately to help with rubrics. So I thought this would be definitely a good quick webinar to put together for faculty. And like I said, if you have an assignment that you're thinking of using a grading rubric for, and you're not quite sure how to put it together, you can definitely reach out to me or one of the other instructional designers. Yes, and then Lynette put in our city help desk at Rush email if you want to reach out to any of the instructional designers. Okay. So, do we have any more questions or comments from anybody? Like I said, you're definitely welcome to open up your mic and ask questions.
I just wanted to say thank you. This was succinct, to the point. I really appreciate it.
Okay. I try to be to the point. Okay, so if there's no other questions, thank you again once more for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your lunch hour, and thank you again for taking the time to be here.